Well, welcome everyone to the Real Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Ron Hunninghake, and I'm kind of we haven't been doing podcasts that long, but I'm excited because I'm the Chief Medical Officer here at the Riordan Clinic. But the reason I'm excited is we've got Chris Wark on today. So Chris, welcome.
Hey, Dr. Ron, good to be with you.
So, hey, let me just tell our audience a little bit about you. I know Chris pretty darn well, but he's an author, he's a speaker, and a health coach. In 2003, he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. After having surgery to remove his tumor, he opted out of chemotherapy and used evidence-based nutrition and non-toxic natural therapies to heal. And he began sharing his story in 2010 with a mission to inspire people to take control of their health and reverse disease by radically transforming their diet and lifestyle. So, Chris, I've read your book, Chris Beat Cancer. It's a comprehensive plan for healing naturally, and it was published by the Hay House in 2018 and became a national bestseller and ranked by USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, and Publishers Weekly. He has since published 2 more books, Beat Cancer Daily, 365 Days of Inspiration, Encouragement, and Action Steps to Survive and Thrive, and the Beat Cancer Kitchens, deliciously simple, plant-based anti-cancer recipes. And so Chris reaches millions of people each year as a blogger, podcaster, speaker, and global health coach through his social media channels and his website, chrisbeatcancer.com. And I was honored to be interviewed by Chris back in 2018 on IV vitamin C and cancer. And Chris, we looked that up. It's got nearly 50,000 views. So people have taken an interest in the IV vitamin C. And thanks to you, more people have found out about it. So, hey, it's great to have you on our podcast.
Well, it's good to be with you. I'm a big fan of you and Riordan Clinic. And I can't believe it's been 3 years since I interviewed you. That's wild.
As you get older, things just move faster. And so, and as things grow, you get busier. And so you've been a very busy young man in the last actually, it looks like the last 11 years, things really took off for you.
Yeah. I started sharing my story publicly years after my diagnosis. So I waited a pretty long time, before I, just even had the thought that maybe I should share my story. The first few years, I was just focused on getting well and surviving. I didn't have a business plan, right? It's like, I didn't plan on writing books or having a blog or making videos or anything. I just wanted to get well. And then once I did, and as the years went by, my confidence grew and my knowledge grew, and I realized I have some, this is important. I need to share it with the world. And then a friend of mine helped me set up a little blog, and away I went. And so, yeah, it has been a really fun ride. It's what started as a part-time passion, eventually morphed into sort of taking over my whole life, and I just became what I knew was my mission. Is to help encourage patients, help educate them, give them, help them look at their situation with, I'd say, cold, rational, analysis versus fear-based decision-making, and to help them figure out the treatments that really will be beneficial and to really understand treatments before they say yes to them. Because the biggest I think challenge for cancer patients is there's so much fear, and they're just rushed into treatment that they don't understand. And many of these treatments are incredibly harsh and brutal and ineffective in the long term. And, patients, they just put 100% of their faith, hope, and trust in their doctors, and they don't educate themselves at all. And there's so much out there to understand about cancer and survival. And one of the biggest ones is that your diet and lifestyle can make all the difference between survival and death.
You know,
changes that you make.
And if people really understood that cancer doesn't just suddenly appear,
Right.
We all have cancer cells within us, and very likely they have been incubating, so to speak, and being managed by our immune systems for decades. And then due to some influence, which we can talk about a little bit later, somehow the cow gets out of the barn and some manifestation occurs. And when that manifestation is discovered, for some reason, everyone starts ringing sirens and bells like, you know, this is a fire alarm. We've got to start treatment right away. And I think the most important thing people can do is take a deep breath and stop and survey the situation and start thinking about, how did this happen and what can I do? And certainly take advantage of what modern oncology has to offer, but you don't have to jump in with both feet as if this is an emergency. It's more of a slow disease, and it should be approached from a slow medicine point of view. I
appreciate that, and that is the same message that I share with the people that are in my audience. Is, you know, you shouldn't be rushed into treatment that you don't understand out of fear. And in most cases, when someone gets a cancer diagnosis, it's not life-threatening in the short term, right? I mean, it's a rare occasion where a tumor is threatening to close somebody's windpipe or, you know, block their colon completely. That could be a threat. But in most cases, they just have a lump or a bump somewhere. And that idea that you mentioned of stepping back, taking a breath, thinking about, wait a minute, what in my life contributed to this? And some of the most powerful information that I came across very early in my journey was, I read a book called God's Way to Ultimate Health by George Malcomus, and he found out he had colon cancer back in the 1970s, and he had seen a number of people in his life go through treatment and suffer and die. And he decided he didn't really want to do treatment. And he happened to have a friend who told him he needed to eat a raw food diet and start juicing. And so he just thought, okay, you know, I'll give it a shot. And in about a year, his cancer had healed, you know. And so that one story was a spark for me to take massive action to transform my life, because I realized the light bulb went off, which was, hey, the way you're living is killing you. And this is not to make people feel like it's their fault, but the truth, and if you care about someone, you'll tell them the truth. The truth is that many of our diet and lifestyle choices lead to disease over time. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, many chronic diseases, most chronic diseases are caused by our diet and lifestyle choices, and stress is a big contributor. And so it's an empowering revelation, because when you realize, oh, wait a second, well, if I've been promoting cancer by the choices I've been making, I just need to make different choices. I need to eat a different diet that's healthier. I need to take care of myself. I need to eliminate the toxic stress in my life. And you can't do it all in one day, but it's a process. And that's what I did. I just systematically went through this life-changing process of discovery. And there was a lot of books that I read. There were a lot of, I listened to, I watched some VHS tapes and read a lot of books and listened to some cassettes. And it was just, I was consuming as much information as I could at the time in January 2004. And of course, into 2005, and then just continuing on even now, but learning as much as I could so that I could make the best decisions for me, and I could support my body's ability to heal. And that was the goal.
Obviously, there was a tremendous hunger out there for people to hear this message, for it to take off like it has for you. And I often thought, you've got your chrisbeatcancer.com. I often thought, if you could put an exclamation point at the end of that phrase, Chris beat cancer. Like, for a lot of people, cancer seems unbeatable. For a lot of people, there is also a sense of, what did I do to deserve this? And for a lot of people, they wonder, why have I been deserted by God? Have I been that bad of a person? Like they feel guilty about having got this disease that seems so hard to beat. And so I think your message came along when people needed more empowerment in their lives.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's kind of like the story that you hear often where, a couple little young filmmakers make a low budget movie and it turns into a big success, right? Like nobody expected it to happen. I didn't expect my website and my message to get as big as it has gotten at all. And I didn't realize there were that many people that were desperate for information on nutrition and natural non-toxic approaches to cancer. But once I started, making videos and writing articles, it just became obvious. Just people just started finding me, on the internet, and my audience grew pretty quickly over the years. And so, but it's true. Like, I think it's not hard to understand why, because the first chemotherapy drugs were introduced in the 1950s. The war on cancer was announced in 1971. And in that time, in 60 plus years, the death rate for cancer has only come down about 5%. And so there's a lot of people out there that have seen their friends and family members, loved ones, get diagnosed, go through treatment, and not survive. And so then they're either very, what I call cancer conscious, right? They really are serious about prevention and they don't want to get cancer because they've seen it, someone they care about succumb. Or they do get a diagnosis and now they're really serious about doing something, approaching it in a different way, right? Because they're like, well, I saw what the doctors did to my mom. I'm not going through that. Like, what's out there? What else can I do? Yeah. And so that's the attitude I think that more and more cancer patients have. And it's obvious because so many clinics now are becoming more integrative. Integrative oncology is growing. There's definitely the chasm between holistic health and the natural health world and the conventional world is the gap is closing.
It's collapsing. Yes.
Yeah, which is a very good thing. I'm not anti conventional doctors or anything like that, but I have a lot to say about the medical system, which is it is one that is incredibly hard on physicians. Physicians have one of the highest rates of suicide of any profession because it's just so darn difficult. It's it's not like it's hard labor, but it's so emotionally and mentally exhausting, and they just feel they go through a decade of medical school and training, or sometimes even more, and to be stuck in a profession that doesn't provide them any joy or satisfaction in many cases, because they're just a part of a big machine that seems to be funneling money back to the pharmaceutical industry. And that's really all it exists to do. That's kind of how it feels for a lot of aspects of medicine. And so, my biggest criticisms are just the way our medical system is operating right now. It's not the doctors. They're just trapped in a system that's horrible.
Yeah.
It gives them no freedom to practice medicine. And, if they step outside the norms, there's obviously you're one of a small number of physicians who are not, don't feel compelled to, or not afraid of criticism or afraid of defending yourself in operating in a patient's best interest. But so many doctors are just scared to step out of that.
Well, also they're somewhat victims of their own training and lack of training in whole person care. Dr. Lucas Timms, who you graciously interviewed not too long ago, likes to talk about how oncology is like overly focused on the tumor, on the cancer cells, and forgets that there's the human that has the tumor or the cancer cells, and that human has special needs. It's not just a matter of attacking the tumor. It's paying attention to what this human being needs to do to restore themselves to a much better state of health. And oftentimes the shock and awe of getting the diagnosis, which freezes a lot of people. Stress, there's stress, the fight or flight response. But then there's what's called the freeze, where you get so stressed you can't move and the tiger consumes you, because you're frozen. And so a lot of people get frozen in this diagnosis, and they don't realize that there are other things they could be doing for themselves, or that there are opportunities to get second or third opinions to see what's available. And then also to find out in the realm of either integrative oncology, there are less toxic ways to approach the tumor, but at the same time to learn that their health, their well-being, their immune system, their ability to control inflammation, to detoxify, all these things are things that needs to be attended to if they want to have a higher level of survival.
Yeah, healing happens at home is something that I say often. And if a patient isn't willing to change the way they're living their life at home, then they're really limiting their odds, right? You can go to treatment, whatever your treatments are, but nobody's cured in the clinic. Healing happens at home. And so what you're doing in between your appointments is so critical. The food you're eating, exercising, reducing your stress, getting right with God, really stepping out in faith and going deeper in faith, forgiving the people who've hurt you. All of these things are so powerful. And the thing is, the most powerful therapies out there, in my opinion, are the ones that cost nothing, right? The things that most people don't want to do, right? Change their diet or exercise or forgive. You know what I mean? Those are so profoundly powerful. And I don't mean powerful in this sort of esoteric way. I mean, they strengthen your immune system. These food strengthens your immune system. Forgiveness strengthens your immune system. Exercise strengthens your immune system. And your immune system is the only difference between you and somebody who doesn't have any tumors. It's your immune system. And you have specialized immune cells that their job is to identify and eliminate cancer cells. That's what they're there to do. And so improving immune function and all organ and tissue function through nutrition and exercise and diet and lifestyle changes and specialized therapies, non-toxic therapies, and just my preference, is just so important. And anyway, I get excited about it, and I love sharing this information with people, and because it's empowering. And the biggest, I think what bothers me the most about the cancer industry, and there's a lot, but I'd say on the front end, is that patients are disempowered. They're basically, when a patient goes into the oncologist's office and says, "Why did I get cancer?" How did I get cancer? They're often told, "Oh, well, we don't know. It's nothing you did. And it may be bad luck or just maybe bad genes." And what that does is it basically turns them into a powerless victim, right? Nothing you did created your situation, contributed at all to your current life situation. It's only bad luck or it's fate. And so the patients just leave with no power, no encouragement. They're depressed, they're hopeless. And my message is the complete opposite. My message is, hey, if you have cancer, it's probably your fault. but it's okay, right? Because don't beat yourself up, but just, you got to take a step back, look at your situation, be honest with yourself about the way that you are living your life, and identify anything in your life that could be contributing to disease. And then let's get rid of those things. Let's replace them with health promoters, right? Things that are overwhelmingly healthy and good for you. And so that gives a patient so much authority and power and agency over their life and their future. And they go from hopeless to hopeful. And they go from discouraged to encouraged. And they go from depressed to excited and enthusiastic, right? I mean, it's like, it's incredible. We have a private community of people that go through my course, and we have a private group online, and it's just incredible to see the attitudes of people just do this 180 shift, from I'm a victim to I am in control of my life and my future, and I'm going to change everything and do everything in my power to help my body heal. And I'm going to educate myself, and I'm going to read, I'm going to research, I'm going to figure out what treatments are best for me. And I'm going to ask my doctor really hard questions because that's important, to make sure that he's giving me all the information I need. And that, because the reality is most doctors are so crammed, their day is so jam-packed with seeing patients that they don't have enough time to spend one-on-one with anybody. You have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's like, you need a lot more time than that. As you know, you need more time with the person to help them figure out what to do. But doctors aren't really helping patients figure out what to do. They're just saying, here's your diagnosis, here's the treatment plan. Here's when to show up next. And they answer a few questions like, am I going to lose my hair? Do I have to take off work? Stuff like that. And it's not really, they're not helping patients heal. They're not helping them change their lives. They're not giving them any kind of counsel or at all. It's just, we have treatments for you for your disease. And that's, again, I think medicine's changing for the better. But you're trusting your life to someone who probably wouldn't remember your name if you bumped into them at the grocery store. That's the reality that most cancer patients face, right? And it's like, that's kind of crazy. And you mentioned, getting second and third opinions. I mean, most people, if they have any sense at all, they'll get 2 or 3 bids from some different painters to paint their house. You know what I mean? And but you're just going to see one doctor and go on his opinion? Because, all doctors don't agree. And I was talking to a patient the other day, and she's seen multiple conventional doctors, and they all are giving her conflicting reports. It's like, yeah, I feel you. That's not great. That's a very difficult situation when you can't even get MDs who are, sort of by the book to agree. So anyway, it really is, it's a blessing to be able to be a patient advocate and to be in a position to encourage people and then see them take action to change their lives, right? And give them the tools and the resources and the information that they can put into use immediately. I said earlier, you can't do it all in one day, but there's some things you can do in one day. You can change your diet in one day. Tomorrow, from today to tomorrow, you can completely eat a different diet, right? Anyone could stop eating a diet that's full of fast food, junk food, meat and dairy, and start eating a ton of fruits and vegetables. It's going to be weird. Your body's going to be like, what are you doing? Right? But anyone can do this. That's what I did. And it takes a few days to a few weeks to sort of adjust and adapt and get it figured out. But eating a plant-based diet or a raw diet, anyone can do. And I decided so there's so much research that's come out since I went on my cancer healing journey. So I didn't know a lot of this stuff then, but I decided to overdose on nutrition. And as it turns out, I was eating between 15 and 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And what we know now, based on some really wonderful science, is that if you want to prevent cancer, you need to eat at least 10 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. And it may, there may be a case for higher levels. I think there is, but at least 10. And so I was doing 15 to 20. So if you eat 15 to 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, good things happen in your body.
There's some famous saying, and this applies to physicians, that it's not what you don't know, it's what you think you know that's wrong that can really get you in trouble. And the problem is, I think most doctors, speaking as a physician, spend a lot of time, just as you said earlier, going through a lot of education, a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot to become a physician. And you assume at the end of the day, you're learning everything, you have learned everything you need to know in terms of taking care of the patient. I was shocked when I started. I came to the Riordan Clinic 31 years ago, and one of the first things that Dr. Riordan had me shift in my mind is that, hey, you are a co-learner with your patient. Your patient is one of a kind, and you need to start thinking about what's been going on in their life so that has led them to this diagnosis, this challenge. And then what would you do? What would you teach them if you had this same challenge yourself? And so it's been an incredibly freeing type of concept to see me being on equal terms with the patient, because we're both human beings. Doctors die of cancer. Doctors die of a lot of illnesses. So being a doctor doesn't guarantee you're going to be free of illness. And as you said, it probably is a profession that's fraught with a lot of risks, both psychologically and physically. But the biggest thing is I only had 1.5 hours of nutrition during my entire 4 years of medical school. And that's not college hours. That's one afternoon for 1.5 hours. We talked about scurvy and beriberi and kwashiorkor. But don't worry about that. You're not going to see that problem here in the United States. And most people assume that the food that they're eating and that it's somehow been checked by some guardian angel that is making sure it's okay. And now we know that 70% of the food you buy in the grocery store is processed. And we're finding out that processing takes out all the phytonutrients that you're talking about that people need for their body to work properly and to heal. And getting more colors, getting more natural, getting more organic if you can afford it. All these things are health building strategies that doctors aren't going to hear about at their continuing medical education, unless they're at one of the areas like, for example, MD Anderson now has an integrative oncology department as well. And Dr. Cohen, he's a PhD doctor, has written a wonderful book on anti-cancer living, where he definitely he says 50% of the survival of cancer, at least 50%, is epigenetic. It's choices that you make that evoke genetic responses in your body that's going to help you to heal the cancer.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a wonderful study that was done on breast cancer patients, where they found that breast cancer patients who ate, basically it was like, I don't want to misquote it, I think it was about an average of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, and they walked an average of 30 minutes a day, had a 50% decreased risk of death after 9 years. That's a published study, and I talk about it in my book. And right, it's like their choices made the difference between survival and death. And that wasn't even 5 servings a day. I mean, you can eat 5 servings, and that's like one meal.
That's one meal
of fruits and vegetables. And for people listening, they might be thinking like, 5 servings. It's not 5 meals. Like a serving is just like a portion, right? So if you have a plate full of veggies, you got 4 or 5 servings right there on a plate. A serving is typically a half a cup of cooked vegetables or a cup of raw vegetables or a cup of raw fruit. So it's very easy. If you eat 3 meals a day, it's very easy to hit 10, 12 servings of fruits and vegetables per day if your focus is to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Like it's so easy and doable. And but there is something I know you understand this far more than I do because you have interacted with so many more patients than me. But a patient has to have the will to live. They have to have a strong will to live. I mean, that's really where it starts. There's sort of this stepwise progression, of what are the key elements of survival. And there's this progression, and it starts, it's like step one is you have to have a strong will to live. Like you have to want to live for something or someone. And some patients don't have a strong will to live. Maybe they're old and, they feel like their life's work is done, and that's totally fine. Sometimes they're young and they're just very discouraged and depressed, and they don't feel like they have a purpose for their life. And that's more of a tragic situation. But if you can find and figure out and decide you have what you want to or need to live for, that's the first step. And the second step is you've got to believe you can get well, right? And so if you have a strong will to live and you've made up your mind, I'm going to live, and you believe you can get well, then you have set a mental foundation for yourself and for the actions that you take going forward, right? Because that's, I wanted to live. I had a young wife and I have 2 parents, and I didn't want to see those people put me in the ground. That's what I had to live for. I was very clear, right? I knew what I had to live for.
Chris, speaking back, Dr. Cohen and his book, Anti-Cancer Living, the number one thing that he lists as the epigenetic factor that promotes survival of cancer patients is what he calls connectivity. And that connectivity can be on so many different levels. It can be with your family, your marriage, your children, your grandparents. How many people have I heard, they say, doctor, I can't die. I've got to make it to my granddaughter's wedding or graduation. And if they have that strong will to survive and they kind of set a goal for themselves that I'm going to live. And then once they set that goal, then they can start looking at the assumptions that they've made about their lifestyle. Because, some people have thought that cancer is genetic because you'll see cancers running through certain families. Well, lung cancer just runs in my family. We all smoke and we all eat a crazy diet. And so it's really behaviors that evoke disease processes, not so much genetic. Matter of fact, the whole genetic link to cancer is now being shown to not be that strong at all. It's behaviors, epigenetic choices that we're making in our lives, or unconscious choices. Like, for example, this notion of 70% of our food in the grocery store is processed. Most people don't see that as a problem. So it's processed. So what? The label says it's got this vitamin and that vitamin. Isn't that good enough? And the answer is no. And there's good evidence that it's not good enough, but that evidence is not reaching the public. And a lot of doctors say there's no evidence that nutrition is going to help you. Well, there is plenty of evidence that nutrition is going to help you, but it's not reaching the doctors because that's not what they go to get their continuing medical education for, unless they're motivated to take care of themselves and their family. And that's actually how most doctors change, is a family member gets sick and they begin questioning the standard treatments, wondering, my gosh, is this really going to help my wife? Is this really going to help my child? What else can I do that might enhance their survivability and thrivability? And this is where they start digging into the astounding amount of proven research that lifestyle does make a difference. It's just that if you don't do it, it doesn't make a difference. You got to make the changes that you're talking about that people are once they have the cancer diagnosis, they have a much stronger motivation to take a look at their life and maybe make a change that otherwise their routine would disallow them from changing.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, there's volumes of evidence on anti-cancer nutrition and lifestyle. And so much so that, any one person couldn't even read it all. It's that much, right? And yet there's this trope that is just repeated constantly, well, there's no evidence, like you said, that the diet and lifestyle really have any impact on survival. So just go home and eat whatever you want. Don't get on the internet. Just make sure you show up for treatment, and we'll do the best. You'll get the very best care at our facility or whatever. And so I hear that all the time, and I just have to laugh and shake my head because the evidence is everywhere. All you have to do is start looking, and you see just a massive amount. And what I tried to do in my first book was just sort of condense it down into the most important studies, the most compelling, the strongest studies on diet and lifestyle for cancer. And then also the studies on, the risks and the perils and pitfalls of conventional treatment, and how the pharmaceutical industry they design studies to succeed. And they just have a long history of not only rigging studies to succeed, but of getting caught rigging studies and prosecuted and convicted of criminal behavior in order to sell drugs. And it's just not that all drugs are bad and can't be useful, because some certainly can be, but generally speaking, there are more books than any person would even want to read on the corruption in the pharmaceutical industry, and the medical industry. Like, you want to go down that rabbit hole? I've been down it. It's deep. And so, that is something that no one talks about. Doctors don't know about it. They don't realize that there's how much corruption is involved in medicine and in medical education, and how it's really just bent toward the most profitable treatment. And what I like to refer to as evidence-based medicine, I feel like is a misnomer, because it's sort of like a half-truth. Like a half-truth is actually a lie. And evidence-based medicine is more aptly described or defined as patent-based, profit-based medicine, because they're only looking at evidence that supports patentable, highly profitable drugs, right? So they're not looking at all the evidence on survival, which would include diet and lifestyle and natural and non-toxic compounds, because there's no money in those things. They're only looking at what are the most profitable things we can do that we can, cobble some evidence together to support. And they are very, very clever, and they know how to create studies that inflate the evidence of a drug in terms of its efficacy, or minimizing the actual reporting of side effects. And so it's a deep, discouraging pit that I think the average patient needs just a cursory understanding of how the system is working, at least in the United States.
Well, as you mentioned, even in real estate, buyer beware. That you have to be a kind of medical consumer these days. But yeah, just like in every area of life, because we know that there is in every area, whether you're talking about food, agriculture, medicine, government, it's tough to know what the real truth is, because
that's intimidating.
People sometimes feel like they have a monopoly on science. Like, this is science-based, and you can find science to support many different things. But this is where I think it's important that people stand up for themselves and begin to check these things out and to try these things. That series, I noticed that you were on your website, we're talking about Proven. It's a series that's coming out basically demonstrating in 10 one-hour programs that much of what we talk about in terms of lifestyle medicine or natural medicine is very well proven, but it's not proven to be a standalone therapy. What works the best is synergism. If you can get a number of things working for you. Chris has a beautiful program called Square One that I happen to print out here, some of the modules that we've already talked about, and getting people to educate themselves and look at what are all the variables that goes into why cancer happens, why it manifests, and all the things you need to do. Hey, this is no easy deal. I would have never believed that I would be dealing with so many cancer patients as a family physician. And there are people that say, well, wait a minute, you're just a family doctor. Why are you trying to treat cancer? Probably you get the same answer, the same question. Hey, you have no medical training at all. How can you say you know anything about cancer? Well, we live in an era where the information is there. And granted, there is fake news, but I think when you've got cancer and you're trying to survive, you're going to really be much more discerning about what you believe and what you don't believe. Now, that's not always true. I've seen people go down rabbit holes, just like you say. And I think it's important for people to try to be as objective and scientific as they can. But nevertheless, the best science is to, for example, with food, try eating more vegetables and see how you feel. And try watching out for toxins in your everyday lifestyle choices, like your cleaning supplies and your cosmetics and your gardening supplies. Read the labels. If the label has more than 5 ingredients, maybe it's been processed. That food has been processed more than you realize. So these are things that I encourage patients to do to empower themselves, so they have a chance in this difficult environment of having cancer and trying to survive it.
Yeah, you need to be an expert in your disease. You really do. And that is intimidating, because when you're diagnosed, you don't know anything about cancer at all. You don't know anything about medicine or cancer treatment, or probably not much about health or nutrition either. So there's a big learning curve. And yeah, I did create a course called Square One to just help people, just to teach them, here's what you need to know. Like, this is where you need to start. And here are the steps you can take to change your life in every way. So you can identify the things that are contributors to cancer, that are known contributors to cancer based on science. And then you can replace them with things that are known to help your body repair, regenerate, detoxify, and heal, to strengthen your internal systems, your nervous system, your immune system, your digestive system, all of these wonderful systems, your cardiovascular system, that work together to promote health in your body. And so, it is a challenge, but that's the thing, going back to what I said earlier. If you're determined to live and you believe you can get well, then that just becomes your motivation to keep learning and growing, to keep reading and researching, to take your life one day at a time and just do the best you can each day, to overdose on nutrition, to reduce your stress, right? To identify and replace toxic stuff in your life with non-toxic stuff. Every little bit helps, right? It's not like there's going to be one thing like, oh, I switched my shampoo and now my cancer went away, right? Like, that doesn't happen. That's not the deal. But if you think about, most of us don't think about the fact that, your body is constantly detoxifying all day, every day, right? It's constantly trying to eliminate toxic stuff. Some of that is from your own cells, and some of that is from things you've consumed, right? You've either breathed in toxic fumes, toxic air, or you've eaten foods with lots of artificial additives and flavors and colors and chemicals. And so, or even viruses and bacteria, right? And so your body's constantly trying to get rid of this stuff. And so the less you can expose it to toxic stuff, like reducing your toxic load, the easier it is on the whole system, right? Your liver has less work to do if it's not being bombarded with toxic junk every day. So to illustrate your point, we encourage, just people in our community encourage patients to take massive action to change their life, not to rely on a silver bullet, because healing cancer is not about some miracle cure or magic bullet, whether it's chemo or whether it's, some herb. It's not about that. And that rarely works. Like, there's a few testimonials out there of people who did one thing and their cancer went away, and that's wonderful. And I certainly would want to do whatever that thing was, but it wouldn't be the only thing I did. You know what I mean? And so my approach was, it was sort of like everything but the kitchen sink. I was taking lots of supplements. I was overdosing on nutrition. I was just changing my life in every way. And I was thinking, look, if this is something that has no risk of harm and a potential benefit to my body in some way, I'll take it. I'll drink it. I'll, smoke it. Just kidding. But I'll eat it or drink it or do it like therapeutically. So I think that's a very reasonable and healthy way to approach it. And, one other thing I wanted to talk about too is, this whole word, the word evidence is such a tricky and slippery word, because there's a lot of different types of evidence. There's different levels of evidence. And there is sort of a, I think we should believe each other, first of all. I think most people are worthy of consideration and belief. And if they have a healing testimony or a story that they're sharing, I think it should be listened to. I don't think it should be dismissed as an anecdote. In fact, whenever I hear a story about someone who has healed cancer against the odds or outside of conventional treatment, I want to interview them. I want to know, tell me exactly what you did, right? I want to learn from you. And I think we've gotten into this age where we're not, it's sort of happening with social media, which is great, but then there's a pushback from conventional, I guess, power structures. But we should be learning from each other. And then in the scientific community, there's evidence where, you're doing a drug trial and it's phase 3 and it's randomized, placebo-controlled drug trial. And that's the highest level of evidence for a drug. And that's usually why doctors will say, well, there's no evidence that nutrition helps with cancer. Well, yeah, because they can't do a double-blind placebo-controlled trial on broccoli, right? You either know you're eating broccoli or you don't,
Mm-hmm.
And so they can't do a placebo-controlled trial on exercise. You're either exercising or you aren't. Right. And so most of these diet and lifestyle therapies, holistic therapies, they can never be put into a scientific trial in the way that a drug can be. And it's a convenient way for drug industry cronies and people in that camp that they call themselves the evidence-based or science-based medicine camp, try to dismiss anything that is non-toxic or natural or non-pharmaceutical as saying it has no evidence. But there are more survivor stories than you can count. Every day, people are sharing their healing stories online, which is just as obviously beautiful, wonderful thing. And that the movement is growing, and more physicians, like we said earlier, are waking up to the fact that, oh, wait a minute, nutrition matters. Like I can serve my patients at the highest level if I help them get their diet and lifestyle right. Right? We can still treat them in a lot of ways in the clinic, but yeah, we got to help this person. We can help this person. Like, they got to quit smoking, right? They're overweight. We got to get the weight off. Obesity is the second leading cause of cancer. Cigarettes are number 1. Obesity is number 2. It's like, oh, these are obvious cancer promoters in a patient's life. Like, okay, we got to get serious about this. We got to get off the tobacco, and we got to get you back to a healthy weight range, because that's going to increase your odds of survival. So it's like very practical stuff, right?
It's practical, and it has to be coordinated. There are many different moving parts in a person who is changing their life to a better, healthier lifestyle. One of the things I thought about as you were speaking was, if we go back and look at Ayurvedic medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, they did not rely upon single item treatments. They used herbs, they used movement, They use stretching, meditation, prayer. A number of things were coordinated into a kind of healing strategy. And when Dr. Riordan developed or helped design the architecture of the Riordan Clinic, I don't know if you've seen pictures, Chris, but we have a pyramid. When people say, what's a pyramid doing there? Well, a pyramid represents ancient medical care, ancient health thought. And then we've got the geodesic domes, Buckminster Fuller, which is, it was supposed to be one of the strongest structures you could make, but it's very unique that we put the most modern and the most ancient together, because I think we're seeing that happen now, that people are realizing that health and healing requires a little bit of both. It's not like one or the other. It's finding the integration of the two. And this is why the term integrative medicine is taking on more and more power as time goes along.
I've interviewed a number of doctors like yourself that, have had the great awakening, so to speak, of, hey, they didn't teach me everything I should know in med school. And that does kind of tie back to the pharmaceutical tentacles, which is that med school is mainly focused on, learning every drug for every disease, right? You internal medicine, right? Is like, you've got to memorize every drug for every disease. This is what you have to know as a doctor.
Well, you actually learn all the biochemistry, the physiology, the anatomy, all the fundamentals, but then it's like you get to the second half of medical school and it's like, why did we even bother with that? It's very interesting, but it's not made alive in the way we think and work with patients. And actually, in the 30 years that I've been here at the Riordan Clinic, I've relearned a lot of my biology and chemistry, biochemistry, in an effort to really understand what's going on at the cellular level and how we have to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of our organs. And none of these function alone. They function as the community of the body. And in a similar way, I think if we're going to defeat cancer, patients have to look at a multiplicity of changes that they're going to need to make if they're going to basically detoxify and reduce their stress, improve their sleep, get a more effective form of exercise, restore the connectivity in their lives, reduce their toxic exposures, these types of things. And when patients kind of realize that, they're on fire and their life does change. And as I tell people, I see a lot of cancer patients, I say, if you play your cards right, you're going to be healthier than you ever were. Health is going to heal. It's funny. Health is going to heal your cancer.
Yeah. And the body, there's something I repeat often is that, the body creates cancer and the body can heal it if given the proper nutrients and care. That's the sort of foundational, mantra that I try to, that I repeat often just to help people understand, listen, healing's possible. Your body, it wants to heal. It doesn't want to be sick. Yeah. And you have a part to play. You have a role to play, and you're not a victim of disease. And you have power to change your life. And the choices you make today create your future tomorrow. And so you can either sow seeds of health and reap a harvest of health, or you can sow seeds of disease and you reap a harvest of disease. And so this is why your choices matter, right? Yeah. And it's why consistency matters. And that's the hard part, right? The hard part is it's easy to get excited and it's easy to get started and it's easy to make changes. But the hard part is you have to be diligent and you have to be determined and consistent, right? My second book is called Beat Cancer Daily, which is sort of like a daily encouraging, daily devotional type book. It's like 1 page per day that for 365 days. And it's just to help the reader, whether it's a patient or somebody that's into prevention, just to help keep them on track, like stay on the healthy path, because it's easy to go back to your old bad habits. And the cool thing is there's a momentum that happens in the healing process if you keep it up. Sure. Right. And it's easy to explain, right? If you do a crash diet Sure, you can lose a few pounds in a week or maybe 10 pounds in a month with some crazy crash diet. But if you go back to your normal way of eating after the crash diet, the weight's going to come back. If you go to the gym for a week or a few weeks, you'll get a little stronger, right? You'll get in a little better shape. But if you quit going to the gym, right, eventually that progress you made, it just fades away. And so consistency means you have to realize that the changes that you're making in order to help yourself are not a crash course. It's not a quick fix, not a magic bullet. You're changing your diet and your lifestyle for life, right? Like I'm making lifelong changes that I'm sticking with because I want to live, right? I believe I can get well and I want to live. I have reasons to live. And this is part of what I call the beat cancer mindset. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get well. Yeah. And whatever it takes doesn't mean the strongest chemo. Whatever it takes means I'm willing to change anything and everything in my life.
I was very happy to see in your module 10 how to test and monitor your progress, because what we found at Riordan Clinic is that information is motivation. And oftentimes when people can see that certain nutrient levels are improving or certain inflammation markers are coming down or other ratios, your neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio, if that's improving, we can tell people you're getting better. Now we want to keep measuring it in order to keep the motivation strong, because it's real easy to kind of become a bit lackadaisical once you start to feel better. Because really, I think most of the cancer survivors that I've dealt with realize that, they are always at risk for the cancer coming. Well, all of us are at risk. 1 in 2 men will get cancer. 1 in 2.3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. These are huge statistics. So you can't really say, hey, I've done what I need to do. I'm finished. I can just go back to my old ways. You've got to forge ahead in terms of improving your health each and every day.
That's right. Even now, I mean, it's been 17 years since my diagnosis, and I don't consider myself to be cancer proof, right? Because I'm 44. So I'm planning on living at least another 40 years, but hopefully maybe 60 years. And that's a long time. That's a long time. And there are definitely opportunities in, over 40 to 60 years for new cancers to form in my body. And so I have to be, I'm not as strict as I was when I had active cancer for sure, but I'm still at a very, very high level of conscientious eating and living and exercising and stress reduction. Right. My life is designed around that because, like you said, you can't just sort of sit back and be like, okay, I'm cancer free. Like I'm going back to my old ways. That's you're putting yourself back in the high risk zone by doing that. So it really is a lifestyle change. And once you get in the groove, it really does become easy.
It does.
It takes, there's a learning curve. It takes some time to get organized and figure things out, and your taste buds will change, and you'll find new, wonderful, delicious, healthy foods and meals that you can prepare for yourself. And we help patients do that. And I do have a cookbook coming out this fall. It's not out yet. It'll be out in early November, called Beat Cancer Kitchen. But, don't get discouraged if it's a little hard at first. Do you just have to push through and you will figure it out. You can do it. You can change your life. And it is absolutely remarkable what the benefits that you derive from changing your life once you decide to do it, from forgiving people who've hurt you, from putting your faith, hope, and trust in God to lead you, from finding practitioners that support you, that are, support you is the best word, because some practitioners don't. Some practitioners, it's like a battle when you go in there. Patients are just fighting with their doctors constantly. I'm like, you need to find a new doctor. If you're fighting with your doctor, this is the wrong doctor for you.
Find a doctor that's a co-learner. Learning
Yes.
means that we're always open to learning something new, that the truth is not done. It's
Right.
ever evolving and growing. And so that was the most powerful word I learned from Dr. Riordan, is
love that.
be a co-learner. And then you can grow with your patient and celebrate their successes as they grow.
Well, and that's such a beautiful and humble, right? There's so much humility in that statement, and so much wisdom in that. Being a co-learner with your patient approach. I love that so much. And so, yeah, I guess to wrap up that thought, once you go down the path, once you get the ball rolling, things get easier. You build this momentum, you will get healing momentum. And then again, it's like rolling a ball, down a mountain, right? It's like it gets easier and it starts rolling faster, and then it kind of goes on its own.
The inertia lessens. The inertia lessens.
Inertia, yeah.
It lessens as you get momentum, and so you start to get some wind behind your sail. You really start to feel like, hey, I can heal. That was a patient of mine. He wrote me a song. Sometime I should get it and play it, but it's. He had this realization, I can heal. And it was such a powerful inner, not just like a thought, but it consumed his whole being. I can heal. And I think that's what cancer patients need to feel if they're going to.
Yeah, they believe it.
And believe it.
He believed it.
Be it.
Versus like thinking about it, it became a belief. And that's critical. And it's like, there's something other related to physics and inertia. I talk about this in Beat Cancer Daily. There's one page that is sort of about this idea, but it's actually harder to move a stationary object than it is to move the same object once it's in motion.
Right.
It's like static resistance, basically. And so again, it's hardest right in the beginning to get the ball rolling. But once it's rolling, you have inertia, and it's like riding a bike, right? Once the wheels are turning, it's easy to keep them turning, and you just keep going. So I just want to put that encouragement out there for folks that are feeling intimidated and feeling like they can't do it. You definitely can. You can change your life in so many ways, and it really is. It just boils down to you deciding to do it. That's it.
Chris,
and then learning what to do and how to do it.
We're nearing the end of our chat. It's been so great. But, I just realized something. You are the exclamation point behind Chris Beat Cancer. You are an exclamation point. That's what I meant to say. So keep that up. Yeah. Keep exclaiming.
I am. That's you know what? That's awesome. I love that idea so much. It's true. I am a proclaimer and an exclaimer. Because I feel like we're the same in a lot of ways, but I love to learn. I get excited when I learn new information that I feel like is helpful to people, and I want to share it. And there's just so much incredible research happening every day, right? In the nutrition and cancer world, or just the nutritional science world. And I just get excited every time I discover a new study. And so I am continually learning and growing and trying to be better at what I do, which is hard to define, actually. But being a patient advocate and health and wellness lover is about the shortest bio I've got for myself.
Well, whatever it is, keep it up. Keep it up. And thank you so much. If you're ever in Kansas, stop by and see us. And
it will happen.
Good. Well, anyway, love talking with you. Best wishes in the future, and I can't wait to read your new books.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. See you soon.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.